What's up, Pirates? Wraith here with Awaken TCG, and today we're going to be looking at EB01. So I kind of want to do a EB01 look ahead where I kind of just go over deck lists, go over winning decks. These are a bunch of flagships that we're going to look over here. We're using firefizz.gg, an amazing website to get deck lists for, top placing lists. So let's go ahead and see here. We have a black yellow Luffy. We know that's coming just before EB01. I think it's this weekend, actually. It's the release day. So we have a regional in Florida, but it's not going to be legal until there's going to be a follow-up regional in Florida. It's going to be a test event, so I think a little bit less than 500 players, or just about that. But it's going to be a different company running it. It's not going to be, your PPG, your Play TCG, Core TCG. It's not going to be that. It's going to be a different company. That's why these are called test events. They're testing out different companies and different locations. So we have, Uta, Black Yellow Luffy. We have a Yamato list, Katakuri, Law, Sakazuki. So we're still seeing some katas. I think katas not much of a changed list. We'll go over some here in a sec. Sakazuki, this is going to be the last set. Well, it's like a half set for Sakazuki before it gets banned on the 22nd of June. So it's going to be a lot of changes. We're getting this ban as soon as OP07 comes out. The East got it about a month late. So we're going to have this updated meta instantly. So RP Law is going to be on top. We're going to have Bonnie's doing well. We're going to have Anel's just crushing it. So I'm looking forward to that. And then obviously the Utas, right? So we have more of a consistent Uta deck. You're not going to whiff as much on the leader ability just because the cards that we have are actually searchable by our leader. So we have another Katakuri. Oh yeah, and not to mention EB01 was played for the Japan Nationals, and the winner was actually Green Uta. We have a 5th place Zoro here. RP Luffy, which is interesting. Moria, obviously still a very great deck, very consistent. So that's about it there. Nothing too crazy out of the ordinary. Okay, maybe a little. Okay, I think this is probably the craziest one. Let's go ahead and look at that one. We have Iceberg. Very standard. You got your Khalifas, your Water 7 Search, the Luchis, the Tile Stones to use for leader effect, Polys as well. And then we just have Queens and Kids for defense. And you're always down minusing, so that kid just goes crazy with it. I'm not too sure what these two cards here do at the bottom, but obviously the draw is amazing because, this is one of the things that Iceberg, kind of one of his faults is just not having enough resource gain. You kind of drop your cards out of hand and you counter out of hand, and then you're out, and then there's nothing to do but draw one or take life, right? So Reiju is a great card to combat that. And this one a flagship. So let's go ahead and look at some more standard lists for our topping decks that are, at the top of the, totem pole of the tier list right now. We have Sakazuki. So Sakazuki is, one of those Mr. Consistent decks. It is very good the better player you are. So here we have, this is kind of running a stage list. So this is not, your typical, your typical Ice Age Great Eruption. Although we do have some Ice Age here. We have 2. It runs stage. And so I think the only new cards here that are added is this 5-drop. That's a 2K. So I think you just replace Virgo with that. But it's basically a very similar list. You do the same things. It's still, cookie cutter, Sakazuki. If you're a very proficient player on this deck, you're going to do very well in tournaments. And then we have Moria. I'm trying to look at any differences we have here. This list looks very similar to what we're currently running, so not much changes. Just a standard list. Not too much to say about this. I mean, it still does super well into the meta. I think this meta really comes down to just other decks getting a lot better, especially here for this Katakuri. Not especially here for getting better, but it has a little bit more flexibility with this 1-drop. So basically, you play it, you take the top life, and then you draw a card. So not only are you drawing your life, you're drawing a card on top of that. And so these, these ending games on Katakuri, once late game hits, you're going Amaru reject, or you're going reject Amaru good game. Okay, let's say you don't have reject. That's fine. You can, play this 1-drop, and now all of a sudden your Amaru is live because you just took a life and went down to 1 for 1 Dawn, right? And now your Amaru is live. So sometimes, you want to reject to get down to that 1 sweet spot, but maybe it's not possible. So This allows you to do that. It's a little workaround, and you draw an extra card, so maybe you hit the Amaru right, and you can gamble it. So a very, very, very good card to have in this deck. But the list is still very similar to what is being ran right now in OPO6, so not much changes for this deck as well. And then we have Anel. Anel, we gain access to this Rush Ace, which makes this deck a lot better, because right now in OPO6, Anel is very lackluster. We also get the Take Life draw, and we get this 6-drop card that basically KOs anything. We have this 4-drop as well that summons this 7-drop from trash. And then you go down to 1 life or something like that. But again, very standard list. You know, you always want to run the Yamatos here. This is more of a rush list. You know, make sure their board is getting popped or their board is getting taken care of with these rush units, and then you just you know, take control with Yamato late game. So I think this list has, you know, more potential in EB1 than it did in OPO6. As far as Anel goes, I think EB01 Anel is way better than OPO6. I think OPO6 Anel is probably the worst we've seen it so far, which kind of sucks because I do enjoy the deck. But yeah, that is the list here for that. It's a little rush kind of deck. And then so here, this is as basic as it gets for Uta, but with the addition of Bluno, which is this 2-drop blocker here, and with the addition of Sanji, which is a 4/5 attach a Dawn, gain at 1000. So I think like it's a 4/7 or something like that when you swing. I may be wrong. Don't quote me on that. But this Sanji and this Bluno, the great part about this, they're both film. They are both filmed, so you're barely whiffing. So the only cards you'll whiff on is Hody Jones and Kid. So that's 5 cards in this list in particular. You don't even have to run the Hody. You can go down to 3 kids, make it 4 cards only, which would be an 8% whiff rate, which in theory you should never whiff, right? In theory. You know, you can probably run 5 games and whiff twice, which would probably be pretty good. But it just ups the consistency on this deck, and I think it allows it to be that more proficient, just because this Bluno is a blocker, which gives you access to not only another blocker, but then this Sanji is a 2K, and it can go for game. I forgot the specifics on the Sanji, but I think it can actually increase its power by a lot, depending with the effect there. But yeah, it just, you don't got to run the 4 Izos anymore. You can run the Sanji, and they're searchable. So it's just so good. It honestly makes your new Genesis searches even better as well. So yeah, I'm in love with this list. Oh, and I forgot, I guess the Mihawks. The Mihawks aren't searchable, so it's 4, 5, 6, 7 cards. I think at the lowest point, my most basic list, I had 8 cards, and that was at the very lowest point of whiffs. So, you know, you can definitely, run down the kids a little bit, go to 3, make that 6 cards. But yeah, just, you get the point. It's just very consistent. A deck I'm not too familiar with on how it's played or how it does. I know it destroys Moria for some reason. I'm not too sure on the actual ins and outs of this deck. I'm going to learn it and potentially play it for a treasure cup. But that is nor here nor there. I still have to practice on Moria for this upcoming Florida regional. But for now, we're just gonna go and take a look at this list. It's a bunch of the small weenies, and then 4 each of the big Luffy Sabo Ace cards, which allows it to be played. You take the life, you summon, whatever it is, you get plus 2000 on the leader, whatever. You run your Morias. I think there's a combo where you can Moria double Sabo, and now you're a 9k leader or something like that. You run your Hioris, Great Eruptions, the draw cards, and this 1-drop is just Searcher. So not too much to this deck other than the searches and the 3 main cards that you need. So that's what takes up 6 slots, and then 2 searches. And then you have the Gecko Moria, the Hiyori, the draw, Great Eruption, and then this 1-drop here, where I'm not too familiar with what it does. But obviously this deck is really good, and it's one of those decks that it gets worse as the set goes on and people learn how to play against it. Once you are an expert into this matchup, I think that's when Luffy gets bad. Let's go ahead and check out this last list that we have here. So we have RP Law. So again, guys, we're looking at EB01 as a whole. We're kind of looking at deck list, and we kind of saw some flagships on what the meta looked like. But now we're going to go ahead and look at RP Law, which is probably, I'm like 90% certain, the deck I'm going to play in EB01. And so here we have a list. This list runs the 4 Choppers and 4 Shiraya, which is interesting. It's just a random list I chose. So it has some tech cards like this Sasaki, which is interesting. and it runs Ace. So there's definitely a couple of options. It has no events. You could always run events, but obviously the new cards we get is this Killer. 4/5 with Rush. If your opponent is at 2 life or less, gain plus 2,000. So essentially it's a 4/7 when they're at 2 life, which is just destructive. It is destructive, which means you don't have to run Zoros anymore, although you can still tech them in to have more Rush cards. This card here does the job. Oh, wait, no, you do run Zoros right next to it. What am I saying? It allows you to just, if your opponent has no board and you go, let's say you're at 6 Dawn, you can go Zoro, Zoro, Rush from hand, leader effect, Killer, swing again. Like in a situation where your opponent's board is just very low and you cleared it, you can just summon 3 bodies and now your opponent has to respond with 1 attack on his side, right? So you can go very aggro with this deck. And then obviously the Ace allows you to clear board. A lot of good things going on for this deck. The Kid is just a staple. Reiju keeps the engine going, and then the Bond Clays, man. The Bond Clays are so good. Can't emphasize how good the Bond Clays make this deck, and the Killers. So we're definitely going to see some fun times in EB01. It's going to change up the meta quite a bit. We're going to see a lot of different decks that we didn't see before, and then it gets even better in OP07. So I'm very excited for the future competitively. We're going to have to wait and see how it really unfolds. But if you guys haven't already, go down to the description, hit that like button. Oh, go to the description, check out the giveaway. We have an OP06 giveaway for 5,000 subs that's still going. It's a gleam.io. Go ahead and do get your tickets. Giveaway is about to end. Thank you guys so much for all the support. I do have a Patreon. Jonas and I just did a best of 3 set that dropped yesterday on Patreon. We're going to be having guides on that very, very soon. But without further ado, I appreciate you guys watching. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace.